Hey guys, Movie Fan 2002 here, and we are near the end of 2024, meaning that we are halfway through the decade. Oh my god. And of course, it's the end of another year. And while this year may have its downs, and I do mean downs, there were still some high points that did come out of it. Especially on our personal end, where we got to go on a very lovely vacation all across Europe during the summer. Truly one of the most unforgettable experiences I will never forget. It's going to be stuck with me for such a long time. And of course, considering that we're going to take a look back of the year, I couldn't have picked a better time to give you guys my top 15 favorite films of 2024. Yeah, these were the movies this year that just made us excited to go back to the theater or experience something on streaming, and they really left a very positive impact throughout the entire year. Sure, some of them did have to come in the latter half of the year than the first half, but even so, what we still got were pretty good. But of course, before we get to the list, I do have a few honorable mentions, and they are as follows. They are Piece by Piece, The Fall Guy, A Complete Unknown, Twisters, Beetlejuice, and Gladiator 2. While very entertaining films in their own right, they just somehow couldn't make the list. So now, without further ado, welcome to my top 15 personal favorite films of 2024.
What if you look your fears right in the eye? Say you'll see them another time. What if for once you can find a piece of
Number 15.
you've been hiding?
In order for me to talk about the number 15 spot on this list, we're going to have to talk about this one in a really, really quiet voice. Even though it's not focusing on the family from the first two films again, I was surprised at how good A Quiet Place Day 1 turned out to be. Granted, it's not as good as the first two films, as I will admit it did start off a little bit messy, but once it found its footing, it became a really strong and well-developed prequel that focused on the first few days of that alien invasion, and it was just really intense and really well done. Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn did fantastic jobs in the film, and I really appreciated that. The cat was kind of fun. It was nice seeing some of the characters from the second film in this one as well, and it can be really intense at times. Sure, there can be a few moments that can lead to some not so good jokes, but it was all around such a great film and a worthy prequel to the first two films. Now, when are we gonna get that third movie? Let's hope so very soon.
You can find a piece of you
Number 14.
you've been hiding.
Freddy Alvarez, thank you. You have finally redeemed this franchise by giving us its first truly fantastic film since 1986. Finally, after such a long time, the Alien franchise is back to its roots. While it is true that it may copy a lot of elements from the other films at times, Alien Romulus was such a really great continuation for the story. And I think it's because it's set in between the best films of the franchise, that being the first two. And that pays off very well. Romulus is such a great in-between quote that even though it's not focusing on Ripley, although I understand why, due to her PTSD of what happened in the original, it still gave us a really engaging story with a lot of threatening elements, some scary moments that'll have you feel terrifying. The chest bursters actually feeling a lot more scarier this time than they were before. Some really intense action sequences in some points, and all around just a great atmosphere with some fantastic effects, with mixing both CGI and practical effects. I'm not joking, the xenomorph in this movie isn't CGI. Yes, like I said, the references can be a bit dated, and there are a couple characters that are not as interesting as they may seem, but overall, this is a definitive great installment, and hopefully a step in the right path in the franchise going forward. If you guys are planning about doing an Alien marathon, you can do Alien, Aliens, this film, and that's it.
Whatever comes, we'll face it together.
Let's go.
You can find a piece
Number 13.
you've been hiding.
I know some people might feel a bit disappointed that I didn't get a chance to see I Saw the TV Glow, but just to make things up for you, I do have an A24 film on here, even if it is one of the year's more divisive movies. But thankfully, I'm in the side that actually really enjoyed this one. This is honestly one of the most intense and brutal films from A24, at least in my opinion. Civil War really felt like less like a movie and more like you're watching real life events as they're trying to get from that. Despite going from point A to point B, it feels like you're on a journey with these characters, and it just feels damn intense. There's, especially during the third act, there's a lot of the stakes are really high. There's an entire war going on. Like, you just want to see these characters get through this journey okay, and the characters go through a lot of good development. It's what you can expect out of A24, and it is. Hey, not to mention, like, it also gives like a good commentary on like what a president could do during the White House. Almost like if the movie was foreshadowing something that happened not too long ago. Although, but what could it be? More like something that just happened. Nah, maybe I'm just overthinking it. It can be kind of intense, and like I said, this movie might not be for everybody, but even so, it doesn't change the fact that this was a really well-crafted feature. It's another great example of what A24 can do.
Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you?
You can find a piece
Number 12.
you've been hiding.
You know, I may not be that good at tennis, but man, so it did create one of the most fascinating love stories ever told, yet also a bit toxic at the same time. For a movie that's not that many people heard about, I really enjoyed Challengers. I thought it was such a really dang good movie. Not only because Zendaya did such a fantastic job with her performance, but also because it had such a gripping story despite being somewhat told out of order in some places, and also having just a great batch of characters that you enjoy watching throughout the journey. It's such a fantastic film that I just can't help but really enjoy so much. Granted, I haven't seen this film since April, so that's why I don't really have that much to say on it, but I do remember enjoying it that much to the point that it's that great of a film that deserves to be on here. Granted, it might feel a bit clunky in some parts, and it is true that like there can be some moments where the film like it could drag on, but for the most part, this was such a really great, intense, heart-wrenching, and well impactful feature. And again, if Zendaya isn't nominated for an Oscar for this film or another movie that's going to appear later on the list, then I'm going to feel kind of a bit disappointed.
Come here.
Which one of us?
You can find a piece
Number 11.
you've been hiding.
For the streaming movie that was able to make it on the list this year and one from Netflix, I just had to question myself, why didn't this movie get a theatrical release during the summer? Okay, I mean, I understand why due to the massive competition that it had to face in June, but it still could have had some strong legs to compete with, especially that it's starring Glenn Powell. In my opinion, Hitman should have gotten its chance on the big screen. Sure, I mean, it did have a lot of competition during the summer, and which you'll see later on as the list keeps going, but it really made me feel kind of disappointed with the fact that it didn't get its chance to shine on the big screen. Even so, it didn't change the fact that this was still a really dang great movie. I mean, Glenn Powell is like this cop who's like going on this journey, and it was just so cool to watch. Like, it was funny, it was really inventive, it was kind of creative in some parts, and it was just all around such an engaging movie. I was really engaged like from start to finish, and and it featured some of the funniest moments I've seen all year, as well as just being all around such a really clever and unique feature. Keep in mind, I didn't really have that much plans to watch this one, and I didn't really know what to expect of it, but I was genuinely surprised of how good it turned out to be. And yeah, it's just such a really dang good film, and one that I just really dang enjoyed. I know some of you guys are wondering, shouldn't this count as a 2023 film because it came out last year? Well, yeah, but it did at some but it was shown at some festivals this year, and it was released on Netflix back during the beginning of summer. So yeah, I'm counting this as a 2024 movie.
We'll see.
Number 10. Well, this is a big surprise. For the first time I'm making this list, a video game movie not only made it into my top 15 favorite films of the year, but the top 10 of it. And I can definitely see why, especially with this film in particular. I'm sure by now a lot of people have seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and they know that this film was just freaking awesome. It continued on what made the first two films great while also removing all of its old flaws to deliver something that was just so dang cool. By taking the Sonic Adventures 2 story, we get to see one of the best video games from the franchise adapting to the big screen. Not only just we get to see Team Sonic interacting in ways that are just as fun as they were before, but we also get to have two Robotniks played by Jim Carrey. Sorry, it's hard. Who are both being played by the same actor. And Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog, which has been pretty much foreshadowed since the first movie. And it's just awesome. It has some of the most awesome action that I've seen all year. Although that's kind of debatable. Yeah, the characters are as fun as they were before, especially with the new additions with Robotniks and Shadow himself. It continues on the lore of the games while also having continuity with the previous films. Yeah, and features possibly one of the best story arcs I've seen all year. It is true that it can start off a little bit too fast, but once it finds its footing, it is an all-round dang awesome movie, and I just love it so much. Oh, and for those who still haven't seen the movie yet, make sure you stay during the mid-credit scenes and the end credits one. Won't say why, but when you do, you'll know what I mean.
You were right about one thing. This ends now.
Number 9. It's crazy. One of the most underrated films this year is from a big franchise where those films are also considered underrated, and yet it's kind of disappointing that they are. And while I do understand that it quite tops that trilogy, it still doesn't change the fact that these apes are still strong. It's kind of disappointing, like during its initial first week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was somewhat talked about, but then it kind of faded into obscurity as the year kept going. Which is honestly a damn shame because this is actually still a really great continuation. Granted, I mean, it doesn't rank above them as you may expect, but it doesn't change the fact that I personally love this movie so much. Continuing a few hundred years after the events of the previous films, we get to follow a new tribe of apes now in this ape-dominated world where humans are either being primitive, not coexisting, or still have that same knowledge as we do still today. It creates a more interesting fascination on the world building, and it continues very well. Not only do we get to explore more of the world of the apes with some impressive visuals, but we also get to follow a great batch of new characters, especially the villain Proximus, and we get some really intense action sequences while also exploring more of the mythos of the world of the apes themselves after a few hundred years have passed since the death of Caesar. Plus, not to mention the whole commentary of apes forgetting about what Caesar actually stood for, it really works very well into the story and makes the theme work very well. A few hundred years have passed, so things are going to be different. It is true that it might not, even if it isn't as good as the original trilogy, it doesn't change the fact that the apes were still able to give us another strong outing after a while.
What a wonderful day!
Number 8. Well, for this next one, it's going to be a little bit more special because for the number 8 spot, live from New York, it's... First of all, the fact that they decided to release this movie on the exact date that the very first episode aired was very fitting. And second of all, thinking about this was a really great movie. I'm gonna make a big confession. I still watch SNL. Yes, I can understand with some of the skits not being as funny as they used to, but we still tune in just to see some ridiculous nature and all that stuff. But even so, I can understand with this show losing a bit of its age. But watching this film can bring many people back to that nostalgic feeling that they had when they first watched the show back in 1975, or at least during its prime, actually. But you know what I mean. And the fact that they decided to go through like all the hecticness that was going on before the first episode aired was really cool and a lot of fun to watch. The actors all fit the characters of its time very well. It's so much so that some of them looked like they were brought back from the dead. It was funny. It had a great frantic tone, and it was all around such a great movie. Yes, it is true that the film didn't necessarily have a lot of character development, as the movie was just set like the 90 minutes prior to the first episode. But even so, it did change the fact that this was all around such a great time, and it just had me invested from start to finish. I don't have that much to add other than the fact that this is such a great movie. And for someone, and as an SNL fan myself, even if the show is somewhat dying out, it's great to know that we'll have this to honor the show, and the fact that it made it this far. God, I can't believe it's gonna be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2025. That's just incredible.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, tripped over my penis.
Number 7. Who would have thought that the next animated film to become the new highest-grossing animated film of all time, the one to dethrone The Imposter, Lion King, was a sequel to one of Pixar's best films, and they are literally emotions. Yeah, I mean, come on. Most of you guys weren't that surprised this film was going to be on the list. Inside Out 2 is hands down the best non-Toy Story Pixar sequel, and you can definitely see why. And this film not only continues what makes the predecessor great, but also adding some new additions to make it even stand out even more. And I don't just mean the new emotions, but also introduce some new complex themes and asking questions about like our emotions and ourselves as we get older, and also relate to some stuff that we can go through. This film truly was the film Pixar needed after a while, and I'm so glad that they did. Yeah. On top of having some fantastic animation, a story that, while may seem similar to the original at first, was still well written regardless, having great characters old and new, and all around just a great and emotional core as well. And of course, I can't talk about this film without mentioning the most relatable scene of the movie, the panic attack. While many people love to meme on scenes from this and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, when you move that from the equation, it's still a really damn and impactful scene, and it definitely relates to a lot of people. Plus, I've always wondered what a panic attack inside the mind would look like, and this film did a great job presenting it. For a follow-up to one of Pixar's best films, it may have had a lot of anxiety at the studio when working on it, but it's great to know that the result ended up very well.
Riley means us. Have I ever steered you wrong before?
Many times.
Number 6. It may be hard to believe, but 2024 wasn't really a great year for movie musicals. There was the Mean Girls film, which, while wasn't really panned per se, it was mixed, where it felt more like a remake of the 2004 film and not really much of like an adaptation of the Broadway show. And then there was Joker Folie à Deux, which not many people were expecting that film to be a musical. And while I didn't hate it like everyone else did, yeah, it wasn't that good either. But then came this one. One that some people did have their doubts that it wasn't going to do well, especially that they were concerned it was being based off one of Broadway's legendary musicals. But thankfully, it turned out to be one of the biggest films of the holiday season. Even if this is only just part 1.
Unlimited.
While there was a lot of pressure when making this film, especially with the confusion that this movie was going to be spliced into 2 parts, although it was understandable considering that there is a time skip between both Act 1 and 2 in the stage musical, the end result for Wicked turned out to be fan-freaking-tastic. My God, I was damn blown away of how great Wicked turned out to be. I mean, I knew going into the film I was gonna have a great time with it, but man, the fact that it got this amount of praise is just fantastic. It was able to do everything in such a fantastic way, from adapting the story of the first act very well and actually have it paced out beautifully. For a film that's 2 hours and 40 minutes, it flew at a very nice pace. The casting was downright excellent, especially with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande as Elphaba and Glinda respectively. The production design of the film looked fantastic. The sets are amazing. The CG surprisingly looks pretty good. And of course, the songs are as fantastic as they were in the stage musical. Not just with Defying Gravity being a fantastic finale for the film, but even some of the other songs like What Is This Feeling, Dancing Through Life, One Short Day, blah 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 blah, etc. You pretty much get the point. These songs are legendary. And for those who were disappointed that there not being any new songs in this film, don't you worry. Steven Schwartz confirmed that there will be a couple new ones that he's writing for part 2. Or should I now say for good? More on that when I do the most anticipated films of 2025's list. Even if this is only just part 1, it was still good to know that this is one short day in the Emerald City that we will never forget.
I'm not afraid. It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
Number 5. You know when I said Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was one of the more underrated films of the year? Like that film, this is possibly the most underrated, and the fact that it bombed so hard at the box office was massively disappointing. Especially that this was like the grand return to the wasteland since 2015. I felt really soul crushed when I heard that Furiosa bombed at the box office, because this film had no right to. But then again, that's what happens when we have the woke system these days. And also because, well, this film was really dang cool. An origin story about one of the most badass characters from Fury Road felt very awesome. But sure, it can be long in some parts, but it doesn't change the fact that what we got was amazing. Not only that Anya Taylor-Joy did a fantastic job as the title character, but we were also given like an interesting story, amazing looking visuals, even if there are some noticeable CG in some places. Hey, Dementus being an excellent villain, some more info into the wasteland. Like I wasn't expecting to see Immortan Joe and some of the other guys from Fury Road again. Some intense and gripping action sequences, an enthralling climax that felt worthy for this film, and definitely sets up Fury Road very well. I'm honestly shocked that we might not get another Mad Max movie after this, because this really does harden me that this film didn't do so well at the box office. But if this may be the end, it's good to know that they will be going out on a high note. God, I hope this isn't the last one. Number 4. For this film, all I have to say is
you got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
Like Furiosa, it was a crime that this film bombed at the box office. But then again, the marketing didn't do this film any justice, so that can pretty much explain otherwise. But either way, it's their loss, because they missed out on such an awesome movie. Like with TMNT Mutant Mayhem last year, who would have thought that the best film of the Transformers franchise would be an animated film? Although this time being the origins of how Optimus Prime and Megatron became to be. And oh my god, did it work so well. Not only did it offer such an awesome story that began fun and lighthearted in the first act, only for it to transition to a much more intense and gripping film in the second act, but it also made us care for the Autobots this time, mainly because it's actually set on Cybertron. Finally, you listen to us. Not only that, but we actually get a fantastic brotherly style friendship with Optimus and Megatron, or should I say Orion Pax D16. Great looking animation, intense and gripping action scenes that gets better as the film progresses, a powerful story, a villain that you love to hate with Sentinel Prime, Yeah, great world building, and of course an awesome and pretty intense third act. I mean, my god, that third act was just intense. And not to mention, it ended the film on a pretty bittersweet and sort of tragic note, as well as setting up for a sequel, which there are still talks of that still happening, thank goodness. I guess the positive word of mouth did encourage people to at least still watch the film on either digital or Blu-ray. But even if this film did do so well at the box office, it doesn't change the fact that we got a really awesome and excellent Transformers film.
Now is the time for us to stand up together as one.
You can find a basic
Number 3.
you better
You know, it's funny how I talked about Wicked not too long ago because another movie on this list happens to be a Part 2 film as well. Yes, of course, you knew this was coming. Back at the beginning of the year, Dune Part 2 was one of the year's biggest phenomenons, and thankfully it's still one of the year's strongest outings. What else needs to be said about this movie that hasn't been said already? Dune Part 2 is phenomenal, without a shadow of a doubt. Continuing on what made the first film great, and even expand upon it and made it even more awesome. This was pretty much like the part we were looking forward to. While it is true it's not as action-packed as one may suspect, it was still offered a fantastic feature where we actually get to care more about the characters, especially with some of them who are just not really in Part 1 that much. Yeah, excellent visual effects, an amazing and gripping story, some brutal action, and more enthralling world building that makes you immersed in the land of Arrakis. Seriously, this is a place that just looks so beautiful that it brings Tatooine to shame. I think maybe even Anakin Skywalker would have liked this place so much. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, like, there isn't that much to say that in words, unless that you should go check it out. I mean, I'm sure many of you guys have by now, but if you still haven't, go right ahead. You will be blown away with Dune Part 2. Although you might have to watch the first film if you haven't seen that one yet.
You are not prepared for what is to come.
you can find a basic
Number 2.
you better hide it.
You know, nice to know that Chris Anders was thankfully didn't follow Dean DeBlois and not work on the upcoming How to Train a Dragon film that I swear to God should not even exist in the first place. And instead worked on another animated feature that I can now say earns the title as the best animated film from DreamWorks Animation. Yes, Chris Anders decided to make another film at DreamWorks Animation based off the Peter Brown novels, and the end result is, in my opinion, the best film from DreamWorks Animation. I am being dead serious with that statement. Not only because it offers some of the most beautiful animation I've seen from the studio, since along with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but it also had a really powerful and gripping story. You'd think that at first the talking animals trope would like dumb down the movie, but no, it was not an issue and actually kind of helped out the film rather than like dumbing it down. It was powerful and kind of impactful at the same time, as we get to see the growth of a robot taking care of a baby gosling after an accident that happened, while also having a great message about parenting, and you can kind of feel for the characters, especially with me. Like, I start to like understand more about what my mom does, and it really affected very well. But what makes this film fantastic is how powerful it is, like how the emotions hit very hard, how the bond with the characters from the strong voice acting, or just let Chris Bauer's score do the work for them. It's just wonderful. It's times like this when animation can be taken seriously. So much so that this feels less like a mainstream animated film and more like one made by Studio Ghibli. I mean, the tone and atmosphere just feels more like it, especially towards the end. In all odds, this is such a powerful movie. And while I am a bit conflicted with this one getting a sequel, and I will still check it out, a part of me kind of still wishes this was still a standalone film. But even so, I still loved it for what it was. In my opinion, this is DreamWorks' best film. And it was this close to being my favorite movie of the year. And yet, one other film topped it.
Sometimes, to survive, we must become more than we were programmed to be.
Now, before I unveil the number one spot, I should let you guys know that this is something that people should listen to. I am aware that there are some people out there that don't like this film. And I get it. And I know there might be some people that are shocked with the film I'm about to put at number 1. But keep in mind that this is my opinion, and I do respect that. It's just that this film, for me personally, I just really had such a fantastic time with it, and every time I watch it, I still love it. And I just can't really find anything to critique that much about. And the more I watch it, the more I just continue just to enjoy it more and more on repeat viewings. And I get it. If you guys don't like it, that's fine. You have every right not to. It's just that for me, I just dug it so much that it, in my opinion, it deserves the number 1 best film of the year. And there are some others that might even think so as well. So without further ado, my number 1 favorite movie of 2024 is, for a year that wasn't that really good with comic book movies, it was kind of a weak year. Okay, actually, no, it just straight up sucked. Except for the one massive exception. The one film that was able to shine the brightest around all of them. And it just so happens to be the first R-rated film for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yep, my number 1 favorite film of 2024 is...
Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. I hear you call my name, and it feels like home.
Well, what do you know? For the first time since 2021, an MCU movie is taking my number 1 spot, and it deserves it. Deadpool and Wolverine is, in my opinion, is pretty much the best film of 2024. I can understand with some people who don't like this film for that, like how it's a bit light on story. Yeah. But you know what? I don't care. I'd say that this movie is a dang blast all the way through. I just have an awesome time whenever I've been revisiting this film, and it is the film I revisited the most this year, so there we go. Anyways, this film truly brought the MCU back on its feet, at least in terms of its cinematic quality, and really delivered something strong. Yes, we still got some strong films in between them, but this was just an awesome film in my opinion. As well as also being like a great final swan song for the Fox X-Men era. Yeah, they had great character arcs for our title characters. The movie is downright hilarious. All the cameos in the film were fantastic, especially the ones from Johnny Storm, Blade, and Gambit. It had a kick-ass soundtrack, especially at the beginning. There's surprisingly some deeper meanings the more you think about it, and it's just all around such a dang great time. But what truly made Deadpool and Wolverine for me is that despite its simple writing, it was able to work with its execution. Yes, it might not have the best writing of the year, I will agree on that. But it was able to work with what it got with characters that you want to follow throughout the whole feature. Plus, and not to mention, the fan service moments felt earned. So it definitely worked with this film. It is true that maybe over time the film might not be as relevant as it is right now. But for what it is, Deadpool and Wolverine is such an awesome movie. And in my opinion, the best film of 2024. And that was my top 15 favorite films of 2024. It was such a really dang good year for movies, and I'm really glad I got to experience it. But of course, the time has come as we move on to the next year and see what 2025 will have in store. But that'll be a video for like in a few days. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video. And please share your favorite films of 2024 down below in the comments. And I hope you all had a nice, happy holidays. And hope you all have a happy new year. And until next time, peace and take care.
Something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
This is what it is.
And there's the lights.
Medical research. I want to.
Bye-bye.
video.
Bye.